So building, we've got, masonry, block, brick, CMUs, concrete masonry units, or what we call concrete blocks, poured concrete, bricks, what else we have? The block. Any of that is a real common method to build especially underground tank. You might dig a pit 4 feet deep or so, certain width, and line it with block, and then you parge the inside with a waterproofing sealant, which is a common available masonry supply house kind of thing. It's a thorough seal, or there's a bunch of different trade names, but it's just basically a concrete sealant. We're using it on the greenhouse now on the outsides. That's one way of doing it. You can also use tanks like this. I thought this one was real clever. Let me see what's back here. That image is, there's an inner liner which is totally waterproof, and then this outside thing is really a structural and damage preventing thing. So you'll see that down there. I don't usually keep it open, but that's it. This is a pretty clever design because they've painted the plastic of a tote black, and they're collecting their gas in this other 55-gallon plastic one. So that's sort of neat. I mean, I'm assuming this is the inlet here, and this is the that's the effluent. I'm sorry, not the gas, but the effluent, and the gas is being drawn out through this pipe here, or up here probably. It's a pretty compact system. It's about the same size capacity as ours, but it doesn't have the storage bag, the gas storage bag built onto it. So that's just curious. There's what I'm taking is an Indian or Pakistani maybe. It looks like a manufactured unit out of a plastic, containers. This looks to me like a floating system. So in other words, that's the slurry tank. That's the gas chamber. That gas chamber goes down to about that point into the water. The weight of that tank on the top is what provides you the pressure, and it floats on there, and it's tight enough. And I've built these at Mother Earth News. I built these. Leave enough space in here, not too much so the bubbles want to come up easily, but not so tight that it gets jammed up in there, because it'll sort of wiggle its way, and you want it to be freely up and down without a guiding system if you can help it. Yeah, there's your inlet there, and the effluent outlet there. So, and he's got his gas collection right up at the top here. That's another version of the same thing. That one looks homemade to me. These tanks are available. You can just look online for ABS storage tanks. There's a guy up here in Candler, M&M steel drum, and he's got tanks all over, different kinds of sizes, plastic, metal, whatever. Very reasonable price. There's InGround Designs, and these are the floating domes where the gas is stored. There's a poured concrete. I mean, essentially, as time goes on, I think less and less of concrete because of the embodied energy in it, but it's really quite, practical. It's not hard to work with and all that. And we are looking at, I just spent Friday a whole day of several workshops in the embodied energy in various building techniques, and biochar and hemp and the addition of other things that already have their energy taken care of are added to concrete. We'll see much more honest and practical applications in that field going forward, I'm sure. But putting it in the ground is going to give you an opportunity to not only insulate it, but take advantage of the Earth's natural insulation, because it's going to, in our area, it hovers around 65 degrees maybe once it's down on the ground. Hotter climates, warmer, colder climates might be 55, but it's still better than the ambient temperature out here. There's a Chinese digester. That's a flexible PVC bladder in a concrete block housing. The slurry, I don't know why the angle's like that, but the slurry is down in there. I would say that this is the feed opening. Another version, same thing, homemade. And there's just an example, fixed dome versus floating dome. This one's cemented, and the pressure is regulated in the outlet pipe, and this is the floating dome, and the pressure is regulated by the weight of the dome itself, and you can adjust that with either springs or additional weights, or by making it light enough in the beginning. You can always add weight, but it's hard to take away weight once it's done, but you can do that with springs. that's possible, or counterweights, ropes, ropes or cables with weights on the end of them.
So Richard, are the manure outlets the equivalent of the expansion chamber, and is that to allow you to keep putting stuff in without having to?
Yeah, it'll hit the expansion chamber without dumping the manure out first, and then it'll build up in here. It'll build up in here without dumping the effluent out here until it reaches that point, and then it goes out. Let me see what else. We already saw that one. That's I believe that's the Penn State model that I was talking about a little bit. That one, and when you get bigger, it does require agitation, probably because there's a scum layer that builds up on the top. Yeah, there you go, right there, and that's in your handout. So, and essentially that also the 7 S's on the next to the last page, or the 7 S's of digester design includes what those layers are and how it works. You can pretty much see from the drawing. The gas is at the top, the scum layers. In our little system, it doesn't really build up that thick. It's too small, and I can also, if it wants to break up, I can just kick the thing or push it a little bit. And it'll slosh in there and break it up. This is the place where the actual effluent comes out at this level, and this is digesting. The sludge outlet is here, and the effluent really is occurring in our system. It actually occurs down lower, but you can pull it off at this point, depending on the design. So that's sort of what's happening within the vertical part of the digester. That's actually not even supposed to be in here. That's the university's. It's much too large a system, and it's not. It just shows you the output in gas per day, but it's not really applicable to what we're doing. So, and that chart I know you can't see, but that's your CN ratio chart. And that, while we're here, that's the. I think that's the last one anyway. That's the little stove out there, which we'll see, and this is the inches of water column that I'm reading off there. Should be up at 4. It'll work fine at 3, and actually it's working fine at 2.5, where it was when I took this photo yesterday, I think, or the day before. So, we were just measuring the pressure of the gas coming out of the yellow line. I think I mentioned ABS plastic, steel, tote-style tanks. The only thing to remember is steel will disintegrate. Because of the sulfide, it will deteriorate after some years. It won't happen the first year, but it could over 4 or 5 years get holes. The bladder material there's not rocket science. There's really only 2 things that work for the bladder, or 2 things that I'm sure other things work, but 2 things that are available: PVC fabric and EPDM rubber, which is what they use in roofing and a lot of other things. Agricultural use is very common, waterproofing on the floors, that kind of thing. Companies online in Europe, here, and in China and in India, and I just looked and I found a bunch of ones, manufactured specifically for this purpose, manufacture bladders, covers, whatever, and they would be sealed along the edge, whether it's round or square, they'd be sealed at the edges so that as the gas builds up, there's a permanent seal and the gas can be withdrawn. The bladder fills up. Back in the day, people thought with small-scale systems you could store it in inner tubes, like truck inner tubes, tractor inner tubes, and it'll work, but it's not. I would not do that because it's not a. With a bladder, you have a surface area, it's an even pressure through the whole thing, and it all goes down evenly. With a inner tube, you're pushing in one spot, and it's hollow in the middle, and it's just really not an even distribution of gas. So it's just not. Don't even think about it. I've done it. It doesn't work very well. Been there, done that. Don't do it again. Let me see what I'm making sure I'm not missing anything. I'm going to go outside here. The tanks can be vertical or horizontal. Some of the designs are really narrow and deep, but it's a lot more trouble, and it's really not necessary. If I was going to bury it in the ground, I'd go, maybe 3 or 4 feet down, and whatever diameter you needed to do to get your digester volume, and then cover it with the bladder or floating tank or whatever method you would choose to do it, and that would be the way to work it out. Let me see. The only other thing, the safety considerations. Methane is flammable. It's also a asphyxiant. So I mean, if you and people have died. I mean, in farm operations, they have actually gone to service something, go down the ladder maybe into a pit, and immediately lose consciousness, fall in the pit, and once you're in, nobody knows you're in. If nobody's there to pull you out, it's the end. That's it. So and it happens. It's not going to happen in our situation here. It's too little, and you're not in a pit, but it is it's not so much toxic, but it's an asphyxiant. So and it is colorless when it burns. There are you can, and I'm going to play with this a little bit with ingredients, but there are blue flame versions. I mean, it can burn blue, but for the most part, it's a much more clearer, invisible burn than what you would see in a normal gas stove. If it's dirty gas, you got more moisture, and it's going to be yellow. At least you can see it. It's going to be yellow flames coming up in addition to the clear. I've seen some photos of other people's, and they are blue. So I'm sure we can do that. It's odorless, yeah, yes, and it's also sort of lighter than air, so it will sort of float around, but it's not going to. We don't, like in a greenhouse, like in there. I wouldn't go in with an open flame. I wouldn't open the door and go in with an open flame, because if anything's in there, it could ignite. It will explode too at a certain level, 5% mixture up to some other level. It could actually explode, like just natural gas does that too, and propane does that too. So it's just the respect that you would have for either natural gas or propane. The same thing with methane, because that's really what it is. And let me see. We already talked about filtration and all that. The only thing left in the handout, which is basically I went through most of this stuff. The lamps require about 4 cubic feet per hour. The stoves are somewhere from 5 to 15. 700 liters of gas is going to be about 14,600 or 15,000 BTU. 35 cubic feet of gas is going to be 700 liters is what the tank is. The storage tank. 35 cubic feet is a cubic meter, which is going to be you'll see it a lot if you look into the European designs. That's going to be about 24,000 BTUs, I believe, something like that. So you've got some range to look at. Every 2 pounds of food, more or less, is going to produce approximately 7 cubic feet of gas. So our burners our container there can serve us for several hours of cooking on the one little burner that we have. So I don't want to waste. I don't want to use up any more time. I want to go outside and show you the unit. So you can ask further questions out there, but let's just go out and do that.